Hello guys, in this video we're going to talk about communication, the modes of communication based on generations, and this lesson is taken from Empower V1 Plus. Now the first thing that I would like to draw your attention to is that we communicate differently, and this is a fact. So why do we communicate differently? According to sociology and psychology, people born at different times have different styles of communication according to or based on their life experience and their history, and also the time period in which they are born, and which determines the mode of communication that they prefer, and also their personality type and character is called generations. So let's explore the different generations that we have, and accordingly the different modes and styles of communication that they prefer based on their life experience and belonging to a specific generation. To start off with veterans, we can also call them the traditionalists. Lexically, a veteran is a person who has a long experience in a particular field, and other words to describe veterans are old-timers, master hands, and great masters. And the word veterans actually refers to that generation born before 1945. They are the oldest and the most experienced members of society, and these generations actually lived through the Great Depression and the Second World War, and for most of their lives, their primary forms of communication were traditional telephones and handwritten letters sent through the traditional email. Because they survived times of considerable economic uncertainty, holding a single job for decades was seen as ideal and a worthy goal. Today, this generation expects communication to be respectful and even formal, and they prefer a phone call or even better face-to-face interaction over electronic communications or any of this new age modes of communication. And they appreciate a handwritten note. They like to be recognized for their knowledge and experience. So to wrap up what we have just said, they are born before 1945. They are the oldest and the most experienced members of society. They think that family life is more important than anything else. They prefer traditional forms of communication, and they are the richest members of society because they worked hard and they were loyal employees. Now the second generation is the baby boomers, and they are the people who were born between 1946 and 1964, and this naming of the generation goes to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because they called this increase in births a boom, and they called the generation born during this period of time the baby boom generation, because 8 babies were born each minute during its peak in the USA in 1957. This was the first generation to grow up with television, which shaped their ability to stay informed about world affairs. And as consumers, research shows that baby boomers prioritize price over anything else, and are more interested in an extensive product selection than personalized customer experience. They still appreciate face-to-face meetings and telephone conversations, and although they do text, their digital channel of choice is always email. They have money and they have good jobs. Many of them are in the position of power in society, and they prefer face-to-face communication rather than any other mode of communication. Let's move on to Generation X, and Generation X is the generation that's born after 1965, and they are independent thinkers and they want to be different from their parents. This generation was shaped by numerous technological advancements such as cordless phones, and followed by personal computers, email and cell phones. This was the first generation to assimilate, that is to adopt embrace, take in, absorb, understand. All these are synonyms to the word assimilate. So this was the first generation to assimilate the internet and digital technology into their daily lives. And email became the main source of communication for this generation, and it remains their preferred channel of communication too, because it's formal. They tend to keep social media for personal use only, and they don't associate it with communication with businesses. And they have seen the introduction of home computer, video games, satellite, TVs, and the internet. And they are good at adapting to changes, and they actually marked by being busy. They don't wait to hear what you have or what you say. Let's move on now to millennials. Millennials are the generation that is born after 1980. It is born in the age of social media and emails. They have natural proclivity for technology and are more comfortable navigating and switching between multiple channels and devices quickly. They are likely to make purchases as the result of an email, and they like SMSs and chat apps as convenient ways to communicate with businesses. And they generally don't make phone calls because they are accustomed to instant forms of written communication, such as instant messaging, texting, and email. That let them choose their words carefully. They prefer to be short, concise, and fast. These are the key characteristics to keep in mind when you communicate with this generation. This is the mode that they prefer. They currently prefer Facebook more than any other generation, but they are highly adaptable to new trends and channels, and studies also show that millennials value personalized interactions with brands more than any other generation. They are a confident generation. They like computers and work well in teams. Their family and friends are more important than work, and they spend a lot of time online. This is a general trend and a general characteristic as well. Their cell phones are essential to them, and they are not a luxury. Let's move on to the last generation, which is Generation Z, and this generation is not given in the book, in the lesson in the book, but you actually need to know it because a large number of you could belong to this generation. This generation is the generation born after the year 2000, and they are actually called digital natives or boomlets. They grew up to use smartphones and all social media platforms such as Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, whatever, all the social media platforms. They are familiar with them and they prefer them. And of course YouTube. They prefer online shopping, and they do online shopping more than any other generation. They highly trust digital communication more than any other generation. They expect interaction to be tailored to their needs. They are naturally multitaskers according to or due to this lifestyle that they lead, and the environment, the cultural or the technological environment in which they are born, and accordingly they prefer short and visual stimulating communication styles.